If you're a college player and you're a great college player, like Caitlin was.
And you thought this was going to be Paige, and instead it's Caitlin.
The delusional fan base that follows her disrespected the WNBA players.
Gino, just say you're a UConn.
The recent IE Puck incident during the playoff game between the Indiana Fever and the Connecticut Sun continues to stir up conversations. Caitlin Clark was assaulted yesterday in her very first playoff game in the WNBA. New information is emerging that is leading many to reassess DiJonai Carrington's public image. Caitlin Clark was assaulted yesterday in her very first playoff game in the WNBA. This situation seems to extend beyond basketball. It's definitely upsetting. I don't think there's nobody in our league should be facing any sort of racism, hurtful, disrespectful, hateful comments and threats during the first 2 minutes of the first round playoff game of the Connecticut Sun versus the Indiana Fever. Carrington poked Caitlin Clark in the eye. Caitlin fell to the ground. She was holding her face. The refs did not call a foul. They didn't call a flagrant foul. The play continued with some suggesting there are racial tensions at play. Recently, Carrington made some pointed remarks aimed at Fever fans, but it appeared she was really directing her comments towards supporters of Caitlin Clark. When players misbehave during a game, they shouldn't be surprised if fans respond negatively. There are so many great players. There's so many great teams. There are so many positive storylines that can be written and celebrated. And for me, that's why I became a fan of this league. Yet through it all, Clark somehow manages to stay composed. These people were my idols. I grew up wanting to be like them, so I think continuing to uplift and represent this league in a positive way is the best thing that we can do. Some might argue if you're getting booed, maybe you brought it on yourself. Things took a turn when a video of the IPUC went viral indicating it might have been intentional. But damn it, in the first 2 minutes of this game, this DiJonai Carrington stabbed Caitlin Clark with her fingernails right in the eye. The footage clearly shows Carrington poking Clark in the eye, resulting in Clark sustaining a black eye. We've seen the animus directed at Caitlin Clark all year. It reached a boiling point yesterday. This isn't their first clash this season. Earlier, Carrington had mocked Clark after a foul behaving immaturely. The drama keeps escalating with new videos surfacing that seem to show some players celebrating Clark's injury. Caitlin Clark played a terrible game, shot 4 of 17 from the field. The Indiana Fever got curb stomped by the Connecticut Sun. I get it. She had a bad game. Connecticut Sun looked good. They looked experienced. They brought a level of intensity and physicality that the Fever weren't ready for. While I usually admire Marina AB, seeing that was disappointing. Although we can't know for sure what they were laughing about, it certainly looked like they were making light of a serious situation. If you want to avoid negative fan reactions, celebrating moments like this might not be the best idea. There was no foul call. There was no real discussion of it on the ESPN broadcast. But their ESPN wrote a story after the game that did not mention that the big star in the history of the WNBA, the first woman to ever be the biggest star in American sports, was assaulted 2 minutes into the game on a dirty play with one of these women with these long fake fingernails that stabbed her in the eye a few weeks ago. Carrington called Fever fans the nastiest in the WNBA. When asked if she still felt that way before a playoff game, she simply replied no, showing she knows how to provoke the discussion. Do you think that had any impact on the game? Do you think that your meal ticket should be stabbed in the eye intentionally on the court 2 minutes into the game? And there's no problem here. Recently, commentator Jason Whitlock suggested that Carrington should be suspended for game to labeling her actions as assault. I agree. If the WNBA doesn't take action, perhaps Adam Silver and the NBA should step in. The NBA plays a crucial role in supporting the WNBA. Without it, the league could struggle to survive. It's not worthy of discussion. I read this ESPN story. Alyssa Thomas had a triple-double and so scored X number of points, and the Connecticut Sun knock off the Fever. And I'm reading the story, I'm like, where's the mention of the fact that the Michael Jordan of the one was assaulted has a black eye during the second half of the game because DiJonai Carrington stabbed her with her fingernails in the eye. Historically, they haven't turned a profit. And this season doesn't seem to be any different. Despite the excitement surrounding Caitlin Clark, the new TV deal hasn't even started yet. so they haven't seen any benefits from that Caitlin Clark's trying to pass the ball in the first 2 minutes of the game, and this woman swat at the basketball and somehow decides to turn her hand down and her fingernails and jab them right into the eye of Caitlin Clark. Kathy Engelbert, the commissioner, seems unaware of the growing issues fans are even discussing boycotting due to how Caitlin Clark has been treated. No foul call, no refs stopping the game to go, look, is this a flagrant? None of that. Just everybody moved on your biggest star, your meal ticket, the reason why you have relevancy, just got stabbed and assaulted. And nothing. Recently, Carrington has been posting inflammatory comments about Clark and white individuals for months. LKCK highlighted these tweets. While Carrington criticized fans for being nasty, there's more complexity to her narrative. And Dee has a history with Caitlin Clark, like many of these girls in the WNBA. But she's at the top of the list along with Kennedy Carter in Chicago and Ang Ree, those three. But here's earlier in the season DiJonai Carrington mocking Caitlin Clark on the court, played a very physical game with her back then too. And look, does Caitlin Clark do some hisonics, some flopping? And perhaps I'm giving them this out on what happened yesterday. David Hookstead reported that she retweeted a racially charged message mocking non-black individuals with statements like "imagine not being black." She also shared another tweet saying something along the lines of "how to get away with murder, be a white man in America, it's not a natural act." And I called it out yesterday in real time watching the game, like, hey, that was on purpose, that was not an accident. But the struggles didn't stop there. Clark's entire game was thrown off balance. Those precise passes we expect from her turned into turnovers. Instead, that was on purpose. Is Caitlin Clark making too much of it? Is she exaggerating it, trying to get the call? You can think both things. You can think, hey, this is on purpose, and it's a dirty play. But you would also think, is Caitlin Clark making too much of this? And then later in the game when they mentioned like, hey, you can see the black eye on Caitlin Clark's face, I was like, oh yeah, that was it. It was intentional. And it did real damage. One meme she posted read, "Pray for your light-skinned friends were turning white," followed by prayers. Accepted. This language is quite provocative from Carrington. Hey man, your meal ticket is under constant attack. There's been dirty plays all season, and again, I've admitted some of them have been exaggerated. It's just typical rough play with girl. But there are some that it's just been dirty, and DJ is one of these people that has a real problem with Caitlin Clark. Another tweet stated, "I'm rooting for everybody black. Don't ask questions." So can we really say that what's happening with Caitlin Clark isn't racially motivated? D is going up for the ball, she misses, and then her hand bends down like this and goes straight into Caitlin's eye. It's also noteworthy that Melissa Smith hasn't been performing well for her team. Whitlock mentioned they need someone tough on their roster, and that Smith would fit that role if only she weren't pursuing Carrington from another playoff team. All realize where the credit needs to be given as far as the success of this NBA season. Caitlin Clark came in and made such an impact. This raises eyebrows across the league. In my experience in corporate environments, conflicts of interest can easily arise. If I were an owner or coach in this league, I'd be concerned about whether players are focusing on their teams or personal relationships. There are whispers suggesting Smith may have intentionally missed a screen during a game. Now we have to wonder if there's more beneath the surface. 28 years. The numbers were stellar. Caitlin Clark drew a whole new fan base into it. And now the question is, because she has been eliminated, she and the Indiana Fever are eliminated after losing 2 games to the Connecticut Sun. What is the rest of the season going to look like? Are people still going to care? That is the question on everybody's mind, with all these racially charged tweets and fans calling for Carrington's suspension for Game 2 of the playoffs. Kathy Engelbert remains disturbingly quiet as commissioner. She should be aware of what's happening and not just assume all this attention is good for the league. Was the highest viewed season in the history of the league. It may seem beneficial now, but if fans tuning in to watch Caitlin Clark decide enough is enough and stop watching, it could backfire dramatically. Because when you look at the numbers with Caitlin Clark, they're her first playoff game drawing one. 84 million viewers, ridiculous numbers, the highest rated playoff games since Game 2 of the 2000 WNBA Finals. This wasn't even just an opening round game back in 2000. This was one of the finals games. So this clearly is showing how much of an impact Caitlin Clark has having. They don't want to see one of their biggest stars getting hurt. The professionalism of the WNBA is being called into question here. It seems they struggle to manage their players effectively and may hesitate to act out of fear of media backlash if they significantly boosts viewership and attendance. Otherwise, the league risks becoming irrelevant. There's anti-white rhetoric circulating as people mock and gouge after it happened, while laughing and joking about it. This doesn't look good at all. What do you think about this situation with all this new funding coming in? And considering how much networks paid for WNBA coverage, eventually these networks will ask both commissioners if they realize that the WNBA only secured a $200 million deal because of one player. Make no mistake, DiJonai Carrington, Angel Reese, and A.A. Wilson. Nobody is tuning in for you specifically. It's all about Caitlin Clark. 2 million viewers versus 394,000. Get over it. The situation surrounding DiJonai Carrington and Caitlin Clark has sparked a lot of discussion. The level of criticism is unprecedented, especially considering Caitlin has already dealt with her share of scrutiny this season. The last time I recall such intensity was when Kennedy Carter had her controversial incident during a game. By now, everyone has seen the footage of what was labeled a foul, though many are calling it a non-foul, and I feel the angle used in that footage doesn't truly reflect what happened. The act of poking someone in the eye is serious, and Jai has made some statements about it that I find hard to believe. This story is currently trending in the WNBA. The game occurred just 2 days ago, and I have to mention that the viewership numbers were impressive, larger than any WNBA finals since 1999. This highlights how much attention Caitlin Clark is drawing to the league. However, this also explains why some players are feeling frustrated. There seems to be a hint of pettiness involved. Additionally, it raises questions about race in this context. Now turning to DiJonai Carrington's remarks, she's facing significant backlash, which seems justified. Meanwhile, WNBA Commissioner Kathy Engelbert has been notably absent from this conversation. It appears she's hesitant to speak out, likely due to concerns about backlash from certain activist groups, as she supports Caitlin Clark. This is a tricky situation for the league. They need to handle it carefully because fans are starting to reconsider their support amidst all this drama. Let's look at what DiJonai said. I don't even know why I would want to poke anyone in the eye. That's hard to swallow. Because she clearly made contact. She added, I didn't realize I hit her. I was just trying to play the ball. Honestly, I find that hard to accept. Everyone has seen the video by now. There was even a moment where Marina joked about it during the game, which felt dismissive. People aren't going to easily accept her excuse, claiming she didn't know she made contact. Really, it's tough to buy that when you see how relaxed she seemed afterward. Jason Whitlock has been vocal about this too. He made some strong points that got a laugh out of me. He suggested Jai might want to rethink her long nails because they don't help her case. It's difficult to believe her claim that she wasn't aware of what happened when she was involved in such an aggressive play. If she truly didn't know she hit Caitlin, why keep mentioning it? It reminds me of someone denying wrongdoing while being caught in the act. Her response feels insincere given how everything unfolded on the court. It's clear that he meant to poke Caitlin Clark in the eye. There was a noticeable delay after your failed attempt to block her shot before you made contact. Your actions seemed very deliberate. You turned away right after the incident, and it came off as pretty malicious. Seriously, how can you say, I didn't know I hit her? That's just not true. This is getting intense. People are fed up with this behavior. Just look at the numbers. 1.8 million viewers tuned in for Caitlin Clark's playoff debut. And get this, that was on an NFL Sunday. I actually switched off the NFL to watch her play. It was a big deal for me to turn away from 7 hours of uninterrupted football. Once the game ended, I quickly flipped back to the NFL. And it made me think about how different things were back in the day. Was Caitlin even born then? No, she came along in 2002. Wild Right Game 2 is likely to break 2 million viewers. That's an excellent point. Where's Whitlock? Oh, here. It is a quote about WNBA culture asking Caitlin about her pronouns. It looks like a scene from Roots with DiJonai Carrington looking fierce and Angel Reese peeking in. Jason Whitlock nailed it with his comment. Imagine Jamal Hill's reaction to this. It's hilarious. But let's be real, being straight and white seems like a challenge in this context. The WNBA culture is heading towards some serious trouble, someone asked. How are the refs dealing with this seriously? We talking about referees during playoffs? Come on, the refs have completely ignored their responsibilities and swallowed their whistles whole. They're so afraid to call a foul on a black lesbian that they're practically digesting their whistles. Don't even think about saying that out loud. We've got refs around who might take offense. I'm laughing, but it's a serious issue. What do you think? Wow, Whitlock really hit the nail on the head with that one. Everyone saw what happened to Caitlin Clark. All right, I'm signing off now. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It's okay to be a hater in sports. Like, hating in sports is a part of the game. Like, I like when our fans are so engaged and so passionate that they just don't like the other team. But being racist, sexist, invenient with your words, come on now. What are we doing? The Atlanta Dream is a WNBA team with a bit of a controversial history. One of its co-owners has been criticized as possibly the least effective owner in sports group. Cannot be a representation of what the WNBA would want in their league. This is our league. This was built, like, I feel like, as a women's basketball historian myself, I've been watching since I was 5. I was here before the league started, as a lot of the fans on social media feel the same. Back in 2020, the franchise removed an owner due to her Republican views during a time when social activism was on the rise. That ain't a representation of us, y'all. Not like us, they not like us, okay? So please don't confuse me saying motivated by hate by meaning hating on a team the way a normal die-hard fan would. Although the team claims to have good attendance, they play in a small venue that can only accommodate 3,500 fans. Crowds tend to show up mainly when star player Caitlin Clark is playing, for instance. Let me just give you some examples. A die-hard Falcons fan can hate the Saints, but they would be going a little bit too far if they created nude AR pictures of Saints players and then sent them to the Saints players' families. That's what Caitlin stans have done to Angel Reese recently. The owner made some remarks about Clark's fans, accusing them of being racist and sexist. A die-hard Tennessee V's fan could have hated our Yukon Huskies, but they would have been going way too far if they sent death threats to the Yukon players. And that's what they've done. That's what Caitlin stans have done. This comment is surprising, especially since Clark has been successful in drawing large audiences and viewership across different platforms. A die-hard Celtics fan could hate the Lakers. And you know what, if we're being honest, that Celtics fan base has definitely gone too far with some of their racist remarks and their treatments of players. It's not okay. The host of the show can't believe that someone could own a sports team without any business savvy, especially when they make such controversial comments about a player who has really brought attention to the league. Come on now. That's not acceptable. I mean, honestly, imagine if one of the stans said the things that they were saying. What if they said it to your daughter, your wife, your cousin, your sister? Folks might be ready to fight, okay? So Caitlin, unfortunately for her, this is a group that is attached to her, not her asking this group to follow. It seems that they found a home in this fan base, thinking that that's where it was. Recently, the owner of the Atlanta Dream made some eyebrow-raising statements, saying they want new fans who look and act a certain way. This wording suggests they might not be interested in white fans or families who support the WNBA, particularly those backing Caitlin Clark. But recently, some things have shown where Caitlin recently liked a post by Taylor Swift, and it was supporting VP Harris. And on that post, all she did was like it. And this Caitlin stans group that I'm talking about, the stans, have now split against Caitlin.